So for more on this developing story, we now welcome British journalist Natalie Blenford. Natalie, thank you so much for your time on this day. And bizarre scenes playing out at Ben Gurion Airport on Sunday night. Travellers landing from London, some going straight to quarantine, others choosing to rather go back to the UK. Much confusion and anger, one can imagine. What more can you tell us about what transpired?
Well, as you say, much confusion. I believe that when those planes took off yesterday, the passengers hadn't been informed that they would need to go to the state-run army hotels. So, of course, you can imagine when they got off, they were completely confused. Some people said they lacked essential medical supplies. They didn't have clothing. They didn't have what they needed for the next 2 weeks. And some people preferred to return to England rather than deal with the intense isolation of being in a quarantine hotel where you can stay only in your room. There's no leaving the room for up to 2 weeks. So that was a shock experience. And today the UK is just processing this news that the rest of the world does not want them to fly into other territories.
Well, as you say, so many countries are now refusing entry to people from the UK, including Germany, France, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal, Belgium, Canada, and even Russia. So what is the latest authorities are saying about this new mutation there? What are they going to be doing?
Well, Health Secretary Matt Hancock earlier today said he wants everyone to act like they might have the virus. He says the new variant is out of control and we need to bring it under control. And I just heard earlier, just before joining you, that people in London and the southeast, that's 16 million people, are being asked to stay at home. It's kind of stay-at-home order. They're now in something called Tier 4, which is a new level of restriction that was invented over the weekend. And people who are leaving Tier 4, even though they're being told not to, but if anyone did leave Tier 4 before the restrictions came into place, they're now being asked to assume that they have the new variant of coronavirus and to isolate for 10 days when they get to their destination. So if anyone did leave London, for example, on Sunday on a train to go up north to join their family for Christmas, they're now being asked to stay in their bedroom for 10 days and isolate from their family. So it begs the question, what was the point going? What is the point going? He's literally asking people to assume that they have the virus, which is a sort of unusual thing to say.
It certainly is very unusual, but as you say, it looks like a very bleak Christmas ahead in the UK. We saw those headlines, Christmas is being cancelled, but at some point it looked like at least some form of small celebration would be allowed in certain parts, albeit downscaled. So what can people do? How will they be celebrating come the end of this week?
Well, it's a good question, and in line with the UK government policy, there's no simple answer because it's different depending on where you are in the UK. So if you're in Tier 4, as I said, it's a stay-at-home order. You're not permitted to mix with other households. You're not permitted to even leave the house for anything other than essential services like food, medical supplies. If you're in Tiers 1 and 2, you are still allowed to form these Christmas support bubbles, which means you can mix with another 2 households on Christmas Day. But if you're in Tier 3, you're not allowed to do that. And if your Tier 3 became Tier 4. So essentially, it's very, very confusing. People need to check with the government restrictions. So they need to go to the government website and see which tier they're in and then figure out what the rules are. But basically, there had been a plan to ease off of restrictions for the Christmas period to let people have some fun for a few days. And now we're being told, no, everybody back off, everybody stay home, do not leave your homes, do not mix with people. The risks of transmitting this new unknown variant are very, very high. Christmas is cancelled.
This trip, it's about to start here in Israel in a few hours. It's being characterized, understandably, as Prince William's most high-profile, most politically sensitive trip. I mean, why is he doing it? Why go?
Well, I think he's up for a challenge. He's a very kind of warm, kind person, as we know. Obviously married, 3 children. He's a family man. But I think he's looking for his big royal challenge. I think he's looking for that chance to make his mark on history a little bit, outside of just being the family man. And
Natalie, my understanding is you worked for two summers over the course of several years within Buckingham Palace for the royal household. Explain to me, I guess, I'm sure this is a well-oiled machine. For a trip like this, the undertaking, every minute of every day is carefully planned. Just how tremendous is the planning and undertaking to go into, I mean, everything from the food to the clothes to everything here?
I would say absolutely every single thing has been choreographed, and he'll have been briefed and, you know, drilled and had history lessons basically to be completely up to speed with what he's doing. I mean, his schedule is packed. I mean, yesterday, before I saw the schedule, I was saying, why is he not doing much on Monday night? Why is he just having a night in the hotel? And then you look at Tuesday and you understand why. So a lot of preparation has gone into it.
With me in studio, Natalie Blenford, journalist, Eurovision fan. Natalie, for you, what was the highlight of the final and what was the low light of that night?
Very good question. Well, for me, I loved the performances from the contestants, and the one that I loved the most was Tamara from North Macedonia. I thought she was absolutely stunning vocally.
Strong power ballad.
Strong power and strong, powerful woman, fantastic role model, and the atmosphere in the arena and the press centre during the event and while she was singing was fantastic. So she was
good
wonderful.
Singing, good songs,
yes.
Good performances. So then what was a big uh-oh for you?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm afraid to say it was the guest appearance from our very special guest star.
You can say it, Madonna.
Okay, I mean,
we're talking Madonna.
Scared to offend people, but
what happened there? What the heck happened with Madonna?
I'm not completely sure. People are wondering if perhaps the microphone wasn't working or the in-ear piece wasn't working, but she did rehearse. It was all under lock and key, so no one was allowed to see it. But I assume the hosts saw it, and of course the producers of the show saw it, so they knew what was coming. It has a dark tinge. Her whole piece was dark and was controversial, and it wasn't the kind of light, fun, you know, energetic Madonna that we remember and that we wanted.
It was dark and political and also off-key. It was a whole, right? Even if you, it was off-key. I mean,
yeah,
so...
It was off-key. 100% off-key. And, you know, when I was actually in the press centre when she performed, and at first everyone was singing along. And I was like, guys, I want to hear Madonna, shh. And then when everyone stopped singing, you heard Madonna, and there was just like this stunned silence and shock in the room. People were like, is this real? Is this happening?
Madonna, not a good performance. And you mentioned before there was dark overtones, and it also got political. She had the Palestinian flag, which I don't think was approved, and also Iceland with the Palestinian flags. Talk about there were not a lot of politics, but there was some.
Yeah, so at the end of Madonna's act, after she sang this song telling us that not everyone is going to the future, which was also quite a dark message, and her dancers appeared with gas masks on and then fell to the floor. Make of it what you will. Two of her dancers had their backs to the audience. One had the Israeli flag on his back, and a female had the Palestinian flag on her back, and they walked off hand in hand. So in theory it was a sign of unity, but polarising colours. You had the Israeli flag on somebody dressed in black, which may connote darkness, and perhaps innocence and lightness with the Palestinian flag. She wasn't meant to have flags there.
Yeah. And what about Iceland? Should they be punished for holding the flags and the results? Yeah. Could that carry over to next year?
I think it could carry over to next year. There's no point disqualifying them now because everyone knows where they placed. They came 10th. They did really well. So I think it's too late to penalise them now. There may be a fine applied to Iceland, or they may not be allowed to enter next year. We're waiting to see. The EBU says that the Eurovision Song Contest is a non-political event, and what they did directly contradicts the contest.
But there was rumours they were going to do something. Was it a surprise they held?
I think, well, throughout the whole 2 weeks, because the thing is, the acts were here for 2 weeks, and they were rehearsing, they were on stage time and time again, perfecting their acts. And everyone was waiting for Iceland to do something.
And they did.
Because they were very against the idea of the competition being held in Israel. But somehow, they didn't do anything, They actually sang their song, they didn't make a speech, because of course they're all mic'd, they're live, they can say anything they want, but no one did anything wrong. I think perhaps Cannes were thinking, oh, we got away with this. And then the last moment that they were ever going to be pictured on screen, they show those flags. So it's like the ultimate deceit, really. They keep it secret until the end, and then they kind of tell you.
And we're still talking about it. Natalie Blenford, thank you so much for being with us in the studio, for your analysis and bringing us the highlights.
We now shift the topic to something more sombre, involving the loss of former UK television presenter Caroline Flack. Caroline tragically ended her life earlier this week after internet trolls and tabloid media went to town on the star. To tell us more about this, I'm now joined in studio by British journalist Natalie Blenford. Natalie, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this really important and tragic topic.
Yes.
Now, social media, the British press, and including the Crown Prosecution Service have all been blamed for the death of Caroline Flack. How much responsibility can we really put on them in this situation?
Well, technically, we shouldn't be putting any responsibility anywhere because the inquest hasn't really apportioned blame. But I think at the moment, everybody that I've spoken to and the people in the UK who know her are blaming all three, basically. The tabloid culture kind of whipped up a lot of hate and a lot of questioning around her life. Then the British public joined in on comment boards berating her. The Crown Prosecution Service were intent on making an example of her, I think, because she was accused of assault on her boyfriend. And in the wake of Me Too, there's a feeling that, you know, if a woman is committing a crime against a man, we need to take this seriously as well, not just in the other direction.
Had the tables been turned.
Exactly, exactly. So she was just sort of under attack from all sides, and at the same time she lost her job as a result of this assault charge. So whereas, you know, having a job can give you focus and can keep you positive, she was actually at home for the whole festive period and the whole of January, like, unable to talk.
She actually said on her social media pages that she's had her whole entire life swept from underneath her.
Yes, exactly.
She was quite open about the fact that she was suffering on social media. And I feel like the British tabloids really didn't look at that or take that into account. Now, let's talk about the British tabloids being under scrutiny, because they do tend to have a reputation for being somewhat, a little bit, like, more harsh than any other tabloids across the globe.
Yeah, so they are extremely harsh. And in the wake of the phone hacking scandal, which happened in 2011, there was supposed to be new protocols in place that they weren't allowed to, you know, do anything dishonourable, like hack phones for stories. But what I think they have a habit of doing is they kind of pick their targets. There's certain things that can make you a target of the British press. Dare I say, one of them is being a single woman, not being married, not having children, but having a successful career. Generally, they don't like that.
They just don't like women who have made it.
They don't like women who have made it without the support of a man, or who kind of... Someone like Caroline Flack was so fiery and so strong and didn't take any nonsense from anyone. And so I feel as though she fulfilled the criteria of being, oh, you know, we'll push her as far as we can because she'll be okay. I don't think you'll find an editor in London who thought she would do this. I think they probably thought, you know, she's strong, we can just push her, she'll fight back, there'll be some drama, we'll get some good ratings, but it sort of took this really tragic turn.
Now, The Sun have actually taken down some of their headlines and some of the articles that they published about her. Now, we're going to give her the respect and not show any of these headlines that have may or may not have contributed. But another person who has come under fire and has received some pretty nasty things about her in the British tabloids is Meghan Markle. Now, she's another one that seems to be suffering here. Do you think that they will learn any lessons and maybe ease off her a bit?
I think Meghan is in a very difficult situation because she was targeted. There was like a campaign of hate against Meghan in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
and now
we've got some images on the screen saying Meghan flees to Canada.
So it was almost like the press berated her and encouraged their readers to join in. It was like, we're going to shout at her, and then come on, commenters, you shout at her too. And there was so much hate out there against Meghan that Harry and Meghan then shocked the world, certainly the British public as well, by coming back from their 6-week Christmas break and saying, we are leaving. And that has actually angered the British press even more, because whilst they were berating her and having a go at her, they wanted her where she was, where she had chosen to be, and they wanted to be able to access her for, like, the rest of her life. But by leaving, they've actually said, we're not available to you 24/7, we're going away. And now they hate her more, so it's going to be pretty difficult for her. In March, she's coming back to the UK to do some public appearances that, like, are in the royal diary. And I imagine she will be quite nervous, and also Harry, because Harry feels this pressure to protect his wife.
Absolutely. How do you think the British, like, in your opinion, I know you just said you can't really, we can't speculate here.
Yeah.
But how do we think that this will all go down?
With Meghan and Harry?
Yes, with Meghan.
I think just not very well. I think if she was scrutinised before, every move will be scrutinised more. From what she's wearing to what she's saying to how she waves, people will think, oh, you know, she's back, she's giving us a bit of her time, she thinks she's above us. I think she's going to get more attacked. However, let's hope that in the wake of what's happened with Caroline Flack, that the editors in the newsrooms are a little bit more, you know, cautious, and hopefully the comment boards will start to be moderated. There's people calling for a change in the law.
A story in the UK. We're joined in the studio by Natalie Blenford, a UK journalist here. Thanks for being with us. Do most people across the UK, are they entrenched in their camps? Are they, you know, Labour people for generations? Or is it common for people to switch between the two big parties like that?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think previously people are quite entrenched, and the older generation, like my parents' generation, they remain entrenched. Sure. But this is the Brexit election. This is all about whether people want to leave the European Union, and therefore people are switching camps depending on what their views are. That seems to be ultimately the overriding issue. So some of the parties have tried to make other issues the thing: climate change, the National Health Service. But really, this comes down to whether we're going to finally do Brexit. So that seems to be the issue.
And your prediction hat here, are we headed for, as previously seen on Brexit, nearly a 50-50 split here, or is there some way that you think the public winds are leaning here? Well,
the last poll that I saw, which was a YouGov poll published yesterday, said the Conservatives were on course for a 43% win versus Labour 34%. So it looked as though the Conservatives would get a 28-seat majority. But then this morning, people are saying that that's also shrinking. They're going to have a battle on their hands. Even Boris Johnson said it could be very, very close, and he's urging everyone to get to the polls. So looking like the Conservatives are in the lead, but nobody is resting on their laurels, as they say.
Is there any sense of fatigue in the public too, that they don't really want to head to the polls anymore over this topic?
Huge fatigue. I mean, not only we're in December, it's very cold in the UK.
Right.
Heavy rain is predicted all day, and people really don't want to go out and vote. I mean, there's not been a December election for 100 years, so we don't know if people are actually going to go out this afternoon. It gets dark around 4 p.m. and it's cold. I asked some people on social media how they were feeling, and people said things like terrified, depressed, but yes, we'll be up early to vote, and horrified at the press coverage and all the bias everywhere. People are worried about future generations. People aren't sleeping. I mean, the state of the UK is not too positive. People are looking for like a resolution to this, I think, so that they can move on and enjoy Christmas.
It's been an open wound, if you will, for seemingly a long time at this point, and I guess having ramifications across the continent as well, not just in the UK. Now, we just had those live images showing, even at this hour, still very dark in the UK, as you mentioned. So that obviously playing a factor here. Yeah. Natalie Blenford, thanks for being with us here as elections begin today in the UK.
Thank you.
That's all.